Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Magic Towers Resort. So in this episode, we'll be finishing up the entertainment district, so that in the next episode we can actually start working on the next area. So let's jump right into it. Welcome back to Magic Towers Resort. One of the suggestions that I saw in the comments when we last worked on the entertainment area was to build something like a cinema and additionally some restaurants and things like that as well. So let's actually get started with a cinema. And what other way to actually build a cinema than to actually include a 4D cinema into the build. So I wouldn't imagine this cinema to actually be a 4D cinema, but I think the dome that we're creating here works as a really cool little architectural centerpiece of the building, basically. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's an IMAX screen in there or something like that. I don't know how that works, but I think it looks pretty cool. And if you use the diagonal floor pieces on the sides of the 4D cinema, you can actually kind of close it off to make it appear like this, connected to the actual ceiling, or at least the roof as well. And that way you can really utilize that pretty well inside of your build when you're building something like that. I ended up calling the cinema Cinemama. Yeah, just taking that round of applause here for that name. Thank you. So that's just a little silly name. I don't think anyone will actually read that name, but I thought that sounded kind of funny, so I just decided to go with that. So this building is very different in terms of the architectural style from the other buildings that we can see in the entertainment district so far, and that's because I don't just want to keep this all Spanish colonial architectural. But instead I kind of want some different types of styles in here as well, just to bring a bit of variety in there. So in this case we're going for very modern, kind of industrial looking, and I think it fits with a cinema quite well. As of right now, the cinema did feel a bit too small though, so in just a little bit I decided to make it a lot larger, because as it is right now I don't think you could actually fit any large cinema or theater halls in there right now. So I think the building just needs to be a bit bigger to actually accommodate for these cinema halls. So here you can see me kind of expanding upon that, and what I would imagine there to be basically like 3 different screens inside of this wing that you can see here, and they're kind of placed diagonally from each other, so they actually fill in the space as efficiently as possible as well. And I've seen other cinemas do it as well, so I think this is actually a pretty realistic way of doing it. Now I'm not an expert on cinema design, so I'm just kind of going for what I would feel like a cinema would be shaped like, or at least could be shaped like. Of course you can build them in all sorts of shapes. So this cinema only has 3 screens. I'm not sure if that's too little. Most cinemas I've been to have more screens, but usually those include some smaller theaters as well. But since this cinema is part of the park, I wouldn't expect this cinema to actually get a lot of attendance from people that might live nearby. It's mostly going to be park goers, or at least even resort goers that would be attending the cinema. So I don't think we need a whole lot of screens. I'm not quite sure how this works for the cinemas that you can find at City Walk and Disney Springs. I think those might be a bit larger, but I would imagine that those might actually get some attendance from the locals as well, which I wouldn't imagine to be the case for this specific cinema, since so far we haven't really placed this entire resort anywhere. Basically, we don't really have a real location for it, and I wouldn't imagine it to be very close to a city. So in that case, it probably wouldn't attract a lot of locals. So here you can see me doing something interesting. I actually properly linked Rollercoaster Tycoon 1 to the game right now to OpenRC2. And what that allows you to do is use some of the things that you have in Rollercoaster Tycoon 1. So in one of the expansions for Rollercoaster Tycoon 1, it actually adds a lot of terrain edges. And you can see me using these right here. Now, I'm not sure if I would still consider it no custom scenery. Of course, it is no custom scenery because there's no custom scenery, but it does kind of take away from the vanilla feel from the RCT2 game, basically. So I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, but that being said, these terrain edges are extremely useful because you can basically use them like walls, and especially in a case like this, I managed to get a wall color that you would not be able to get with the vanilla game objects in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. So I think using those terrain edges, we can actually start doing a lot more than we were able to before, and for that reason, I think we should as well just start using them. So maybe we'll use it more in the future. Maybe I'll go back to a few things and add it where I feel like it would fit well. But especially for this building, I kind of like the sandstone color that you get along the bottom there. Now for the tower here, I couldn't get that same color, of course, because we're using the river rapids again to create the base of this round tower, and then we're stuck with the color options. Now one thing that I have been experimenting with is actually kind of changing out the palette. I wouldn't want a palette that is very specifically made for this park and really changes a lot about the colors in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, because I still wanted to stay true to the original. But there are a few colors in T2 that are not that great, and I think a lot of people agree with me on those colors. It's the dark blue color, it's the dark green, or I think it's called saturated green color, and the dark orange color. Those colors just always feel very odd to me because they are pretty extreme. The blue, for instance, is very intense, unlike most of the other colors that you can find in the game, and it kind of makes it hard to use. It basically looks like, if you're familiar with paint, it basically looks like an RGB 00255 blue, basically, which is very... You usually don't use that when you're actually making things, because it's a very hard color to use well. I guess apart from IKEA, they might use the color, but even then, in real life, if you see those colors, they tend to be a bit more saturated, less saturated, I mean. So I was actually thinking about making a palette that kind of fixes those colors, and we might actually use that for this park. So let me know in the comments what you think about that idea, because I'm not quite sure if I want to do that or not. So I'll just ask you guys to see what you guys think. I'm very curious to see what you guys think about that. Because I would like to be able to use more colors. Right now, I don't think I'm using the dark blue, the dark orange, and the saturated green color anywhere in the park, just for that very reason. Because it just is a bit too much. But if we desaturate those colors just a little bit, we might actually be able to start using those colors as well. But then if you view the park without the palette, it will still actually probably look just as good. So that's kind of what I want to achieve with that palette as well, is to not actually detract from the original game and not change too much. Like, you would still be able to view the entire thing without that palette as well. So let me know what you think about that. Now here in the corner, I wanted to create a small little shopping mall type of thing here, or at least an indoor shopping mall type of thing. So there's actually going to be a small walkway that goes right through the center of the building with some glass roofs just to bring the light in there as well. We've all been to a mall. We know how these things work. So I would imagine there to just be some shops, and maybe that's a bit of a nicer place to go when it is raining outside. It has a second floor as well for the stores. You often see this with some kind of clothing stores, like the larger clothing stores or department stores. They might actually have a second floor as well, or multiple floors for that matter. So I think that would fit very well inside of this little mall building. And with that, we're kind of starting to close off the entertainment district. So I think originally I had imagined this entertainment district to be a bit larger. But for right now, I think this is good enough for now, I think. Maybe we can expand it in the future if we feel like that would be best. Maybe once we've added a lot of resorts, hotels, I mean, to the park, we might actually want to be able to accommodate more guests inside of the entertainment district. But for now, I think this is a good size to get started. and we can always expand, which is why I kept the trees there, because I would imagine that to be a great path in the future if we do decide to expand this entertainment district. So I've also decided to give the entertainment district a name, and someone had a suggestion, and I should have really written down his name. Originally someone had an idea for an Italian name, to which someone replied that a Spanish name might be a bit more fitting because of the Spanish colonial style. So that's what I actually ended up going with. So the name of this entertainment district will be Plaza Mágico. I don't know how to pronounce it in Spanish, but that's the name that we're going for. I should have probably looked that up beforehand. Oh well, I'm a professional, you know. Alright, so backstage areas, of course, just to make sure that the stores can have their wares brought to them using some trucks behind the scenes. Very similar stuff to what we're doing inside of the park as well. Of course, here we have a bit more space right now to plan that out properly. So yeah, trucks will be able to come in there. We'll probably need to make an access road that leads off the park, or at least connects to a road that we have inside of the map itself. So with the entertainment district now done, I wanted to really quickly finish up this little corner of the American waterfront area. I felt like the waterfront area just needed to be extended a little bit further in this direction. And after that, we can start going into the next area. But I do think what we're building here works for both of these areas. So I think we can very smoothly transition from one of these areas to the next, which is going to be very interesting because we haven't really done that quite like that before. The Arabian area connects with the jungle area pretty well as well. I think that's a nice transition, but this is a bit more of a dense connection where there's still actually a lot going on, unlike the Arabian area to the jungle area, where we actually have very little going on. It's just a path with some vegetation. I think this area will be able to connect a little bit better in that sense. So what is actually next? Well, I'm not sure if I should tell you guys yet, but I have some really cool ideas. Also based on the suggestions that I got, I basically combined a few different ideas into something pretty unique, I think, and it's gonna be really cool. So I'll just not say what it is going to be until the future. So I tried to fix up the boat just a little bit here. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like the way the boat looks. It is meant to be a bit more of a flat boat, basically. I made the sail a bit larger on it, or at least the poles that the sail would connect to. And I think that's all I'm gonna change about the boat right now. In the previous episode, I already changed the color of the boat, and I think that helped as well. But overall, I think I kind of like the shape and the look of the boat as it is right now. So I think I'm gonna keep it just like that. So with the American waterfront corner here finished, it was just time to add some little bits and pieces. So here I'm adding the actual sign for Plaza Mágica, so people actually know what it is called. I was initially going to place it near the fountain, but the fountain is an old size, so I couldn't actually place a sign there, unless I went with a tree wide sign, but that's going to be a bit tricky to pull off. So I didn't really want to do that. So here I wanted to change up the roller coaster that we have in the American waterfront area, because the lift hill on that first section where you go through the ocean was acting as a block break, and it didn't want it to work like that. So I just removed the slope to flat section of lift hill, and that basically removes the block break from that area. So now the coaster will just go over that hill in one single go without actually waiting for the train in front of that section to clear. I'm not sure I've actually ever passed there, but I figured I would try to fix that. So just adding a little shed here with a toilet, just to kind of build off this area, kind of making things a bit smaller as we get to the end. So we can actually transition into that next area. I might actually give you one little spoiler. It is going to involve some steampunk, but not in the most traditional sense. So definitely stay tuned for that, because we are going to be working on that in the very next episode. So here you can see me using the road lines plugin that I wrote. You can see the video that I made. It's a previous video that is on my channel, and it basically is a plugin that really quickly allows you to create road lines more easily. Usually you have to sink them into the ground using zero clearance, but with this plugin they can be built for you, and it's a lot faster and a lot easier and a lot more fun to actually build road lines that way. So just adding some more roof utilities, some little details like doors on the backstage areas and things like that, just to really finish off the entertainment district area. We'll later jump into the backstage area a bit more just to finish that up and connect it to other things as well. But for now we'll keep it as it is until we actually have something behind there to connect it to. So I think that would make sense to do it that way. Speaking of the backstage area, I'm just gonna continue wrapping this backstage road around the park. Basically, I think we'll have a road around the entire park. I think that makes sense. That way, the cast members will be able to get around the park a little bit more easily. So that's about it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching again. I hope to see you guys in the next one where we will be building the next area. If you like this video, make sure to like this video. It helps other people find these videos as well. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. That way you get notified of the next video, which will be a new area. So thank you guys so much for watching again, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.